Final question from Colin R. I know this is more of an offseason question than a coming down the stretch question, but what happens with Brandon's contract situation? Okay, so to kind of get into the details here, just briefly, the way that this is going to work for those that are unaware of Brandon Miller's contract situation and what he's referring to here, Miller is going to be heading into his fourth season next year. And this offseason, from July all the way to October, he and the Hornets can agree on a 4 year or a 5 year extension. Now, that doesn't change his contract for the upcoming season. He's still going to be making that $15 million on the books. So that extension won't kick in until 27, 28. The potential contract could be up to 25% of the cap. We've had this discussion before, through text message, through podcast, depending on how much the cap rises, because these are all projections at this point. If he were to get the full 25%, it could be upwards of 43, 44, 45 million. Now, every Hornets fan that sees that figure, they're probably going to be like backing away, hesitant. Like, that's not something that he should be getting. That's not really the type of money that Brandon Miller has proven at this point. And I would agree. But the question becomes, because there's negotiation, where does that number fall? And I'm not sure I have like the perfect number, but maybe in the ballpark of like 32, 33, 34. Like, does that feel right, even if you're not necessarily willing to give that up, Matt?
Yeah, the number that I've kind of come back to is the Jalen Johnson got 5 for 150 on his like rookie extension, so
Yep.
$30 million for 5 years. I feel like there is a similar story with those two guys. Miller drafted much higher, came in with a little more pedigree than Johnson, who kind of sat out his first year at Duke and I think was picked like late lottery, like in the teens somewhere. But guys that you could the talent is so evident to guys that you can run offense through, but availability has been the main question mark plaguing them in their first two seasons. Which it leads to the conversation at the end of their third year. What does the contract look like? Can you pay them a max because you know that they're like this talented wing that the league has been built around for decades, like the wing that is a two-way player that you can put the ball in and drive good offense. But there's just still a lot of questions with Miller, so I think that if he were to agree to a contract in that range, 5 for 150, 5 for 160, I think it's a win for Charlotte. It's a win for Miller. He locks in big time, long term money, but it's not like, it's not going to preclude Charlotte from doing anything long term on their cap sheet because he's not making that, crazy max money. But yeah, at beginning of the year, if you had asked me, I would have told you that there's no way Charlotte doesn't pay Miller the max. I mean, there is any wing that has shown like a modicum of all-star two-way potential just seems to get that money. But there have been enough questions that I've raised this year, even though I think Miller has played really well for the majority of the season. Like he has his struggles, and it feels like his bad games are really loud, but his
Yes.
good games have been really good. I mean, he leads the team in scoring. We've talked a million times about the leap he's made as a playmaker. The defense has been really good, at least off ball, creating events with blocks or steals. But there are just still enough questions with Miller in terms of durability, like with the shoulder injury, the wrist injury, the questions about can he actually be a go-to two-way scoring option or go-to scoring option 3 levels on a tight playoff game that I'm not comfortable giving him the full max that he's eligible for. And I don't know if that's going to be like detrimental to Charlotte if they do, but I wouldn't do it. I'm curious to know what those negotiations look like. Is Charlotte comfortable with letting him get to restricted free agency in the summer of 2027 and kind of letting it play out that way? Because there's always that failsafe. If they don't reach a number this year, they let Miller reach restricted free agency, let the market set the price, and then they'll likely just match it and move on.
That's true. That's true. I think that's definitely a pathway, especially if they're negotiating and they just feel like they're too far off.